Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Globe showing Europe, Africa sparkles. Before we dive into today's mind-blowing question, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a like, so you don't miss any of our future videos full of wild science and what-if scenarios. So, what if Earth had rings like Saturn? Imagine looking up at the sky every night and seeing glowing arcs of light stretching from horizon to horizon, shimmering in gold, silver, and icy white. These rings wouldn't just be beautiful, they'd change everything about life on Earth. Let's start from the beginning. For Earth to have rings, something huge must have happened. Maybe a massive moon got too close and was torn apart by gravity, the same way Saturn's rings were born. The debris would spread out, forming a flat, shining disk of dust and ice orbiting around our planet. From space, Earth would look breathtaking, a blue marble surrounded by shimmering bands. But down here on the surface, the view would depend on where you live. Near the equator, you'd see the rings edge on, like a thin, bright line slicing through the sky. But if you lived closer to the poles, the rings would dominate the heavens, wide, glowing arcs visible even during the day. The nights, they'd never be truly dark again. Cities under the rings would glow with reflected light, creating eternal twilight. The stars would fade, and stargazers would have to travel to special shadow zones, where the rings don't shine. But that's just the beginning. The rings wouldn't be just decoration, they'd affect our climate, our satellites, even our culture. Alright, let's dig deeper into what life on Earth would actually be like if we had rings like Saturn, because it wouldn't just look magical. It would completely reshape how we live. First, let's talk light and shadow. The rings, made of billions of icy particles and space dust, would reflect a huge amount of sunlight. This means areas under the rings would get less direct sunlight. Imagine cooler, dimmer days in certain regions and strange, glowing nights where the rings scatter soft white light across the sky. Some countries near the equator might experience permanent twilight, while others could bask in the rings' glow even at midnight. Now think about the weather. With the sunlight unevenly blocked or reflected, global temperatures could shift dramatically. Deserts might shrink as less sunlight reaches the ground, while polar areas could warm slightly because of light bouncing from the rings. In short, the planet's entire climate system would have to adjust. Next, space travel and satellites would be a nightmare. Thousands of artificial satellites orbit Earth right now, GPS, communication, weather systems. But if we had massive rings, any orbiting object could smash into icy debris. It'd be like flying through a cosmic minefield. Humanity would have to rethink space exploration, creating new, safe zones for spacecraft. And what about nighttime on Earth? Imagine standing outside in a quiet field. You look up, and instead of a black sky, you see huge shimmering arcs of silver stretching across the heavens. The rings would reflect sunlight so powerfully that night would feel like an eternal dawn. Artists, dreamers, and poets would never run out of inspiration. Cities might even change their architecture, designing buildings and windows to face the glowing skies. Culturally, it would be a revolution. Ancient civilizations would have worshipped the rings as divine. They'd mark them in calendars, myths, and religions. Even modern life would change. Imagine every flag, logo, and movie showing the ringed Earth. It had become part of our identity as humans. But of course, beauty often comes with danger. The same debris that made the rings could eventually rain down to Earth, burning up in the atmosphere or, in rare cases, crashing into the surface. Over millions of years, the rings might fade, their ice melting and dust pulled by gravity. Still, for as long as they lasted, Earth would be a planet of light and wonder. glowing, breathtaking, and utterly alien compared to the world we know. Alright, now imagine you're standing somewhere on Earth, looking up at the sky for the first time in a world where our planet has massive, shimmering rings like Saturn. If you were standing in the middle of Africa, near the equator, the view would be unbelievable. The rings would cut right across the sky like a bright, endless silver bridge stretching from horizon to horizon. At sunrise, they'd glow gold and pink, reflecting the dawn light like a gigantic mirror in space. At night, the rings would shimmer faintly, lighting up the landscape even without the moon. You could probably read a book outdoors at midnight, illuminated only by the reflected sunlight from the rings. If you were in North America or Europe, your experience would be different. You'd see the rings tilted in the sky, almost like a giant rainbow frozen in place. Not colorful, but glowing in shades of icy white and pale blue. The higher you go in latitude, the thinner the rings would appear until they eventually disappear from view near the poles. People living near the Arctic might rarely see them, while those closer to the equator would live under their glow every single day. Now picture space itself. The International Space Station, if it could still exist, would orbit dangerously close to the inner edge of the rings. Astronauts would look down and see vast streaks of ice and dust circling below them, casting shadows on the planet. It would be both mesmerizing and terrifying, a constant reminder of how fragile our orbiting technology would be in this new world. Even the oceans would look different. During the night, the rings would reflect enough light to make the water shimmer faintly. Sailors and travelers at sea would navigate not just by stars, but by the orientation of the glowing arcs overhead. The sight of a full ringlit ocean would be one of the most beautiful and eerie things ever seen by human eyes. And the skyline of cities, imagine standing in New York, Tokyo, or Rio de Janeiro. The rings would dominate the horizon. Architects might build observatories on rooftops just to admire them. There would be cafes, viewing decks, and even festivals dedicated to ring light nights. Children would grow up thinking that's just how the sky is supposed to look, split by a glowing band of light stretching forever. But while humans would marvel at the view, nature would quietly struggle. Many nocturnal animals rely on darkness to hunt, sleep, and navigate. With the rings reflecting constant light, nighttime might never be truly dark again. Birds migrating under the glow could become disoriented, and plants might evolve differently under the new light patterns. Now imagine life a few decades after the appearance of the rings, a fully adapted ringed Earth. Humanity has not only learned to live with them, but has made them a centerpiece of culture, science, and even religion. Astronomers would have an entirely new field of study. Observatories around the equator, in places like Ecuador, Kenya, and Indonesia, would become the world's most important research hubs. Scientists would constantly measure how sunlight scatters through the icy particles, how shadows fall on Earth, and how the rings slowly shift over time. The colors of sunsets would be spectacular. Deep purples, glowing pinks, and gold streaks cast across the sky by millions of frozen fragments orbiting above. Cultural traditions would evolve too. In ancient times, people worshipped the moon and stars. Now they'd worship the rings. There could be holidays where people gather at night to watch the ring light reflections. When the sunlight hits the rings at just the right angle and paints the sky with ribbons of light. In cities like Cairo or Rio, where the view would be nearly perfect, the rings would inspire music, poetry, and art unlike anything we've ever known. But not everything would be peaceful. The rings would affect Earth's climate. Their reflective surface might bounce sunlight back into space, slightly cooling the planet. Some regions could experience colder winters or longer twilight periods. Farmers would have to adapt. Crops might grow slower, seasons could shift unpredictably, and ecosystems would change. And then there's the psychological effect. Imagine never seeing a dark night sky again. Stars would always be dimmed by the glowing band overhead. The feeling of vast cosmic emptiness that once connected humanity to the universe might be replaced by something closer, almost claustrophobic. For many, it would be beautiful, for others, haunting. Meanwhile, in outer space, satellites and space stations would face a deadly problem. The ring particles, ice and dust, would constantly collide with anything trying to pass through them. Space travel would become incredibly risky. Launch windows would need precise timing to avoid ring debris. Humanity might even be partially trapped on Earth, unable to safely travel beyond the rings. Yet despite all this, the view would remain unforgettable. From the beaches of Thailand to the deserts of Arizona, every sunrise and sunset would transform the sky into a living painting. Tourists would travel thousands of kilometers just to see how the rings glow differently in each region. And perhaps, after centuries, children would stop calling them rings. To them, it would just be the sky. Over the centuries, the rings would slowly begin to fade, just as all cosmic wonders eventually do. Tiny particles would collide and fall toward Earth's atmosphere, burning up like constant, invisible shooting stars. At first, scientists would notice small gaps appearing in the once brilliant bands. Then, the light patterns in the night sky would start to shift, becoming dimmer, less vibrant. Humanity would be witnessing the slow death of its greatest spectacle. In cities like Tokyo, people would gather on rooftops to watch the last reflections shimmer faintly through the haze. Poets would write about the vanishing crown, and artists would paint what future generations would never see. For many, the disappearance of the rings would feel like losing a part of the planet's soul, a reminder of how temporary beauty can be, even on a cosmic scale. Scientists would explain it calmly. Earth's gravity was slowly pulling the ring particles down, dragging them into the upper atmosphere where they disintegrate. In some regions, for a few years, people might even see faint streaks of glowing dust falling through the sky, tiny remnants of the icy rings burning up as shooting stars. As the final fragments vanished, the sky would darken again for the first time in thousands of years. The stars, long hidden behind the shimmering bands, would reappear in their full brilliance, and humanity, looking up at that pure, unbroken darkness, would finally understand something profound: that even the most magnificent creations of nature are temporary, and their loss only deepens our appreciation of the universe's eternal mystery. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through a ringed Earth, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss our next incredible What If adventure. Until next time, stay curious and see you in the next video. Rocket Sparkles.